Hey, I just wanted to show you guys pyramid strings, legendary, made in Germany. Same family owns this company. They started in 1850 and they make strings for every string instrument on earth, I think. So they have a lot of experience, German steel, just great strings, and I don't think you will regret buying them. They cost a little more, but they last about 5 times as long. I've had a lot of requests about what gauge, where to get them, and why I use them. And I've tried just about every string made in the U.S. And these are the ones. There's a green set that I don't use anymore. That's these. Let's get a little stuff on it. These are the standard hex core, and these are great strings too. But in the process, Toneman, when I was ordering strings from Toneman, here's his website, and he is the best source for pyramid strings as far as I'm concerned. He has strings that nobody else carries. Toneman, just out of the kindness of his heart, sent me a set and said, try these. Well, these are the old style Tone Monster strings, nickel classics with a round core. And if you go on his site, which is toneman.com, tone-man.com /pyramid.htm, he explains that, in 1970, here are the strings, Pyramid Nickel Classics. Somewhere around 1970, the string manufacturer switched from round core to hex core for wound strings. This helped them lock the wrap onto the core for less defective wound strings. Unfortunately, the tone and sound of the string changed considerably. Sadly, this is what we are all used to hearing and playing these days. But these strings are the exact specs used originally from the late 40s through the 60s, and feature a small core and large wrap. And then the gauges are right here. Right now, since my hands are getting a little arthritic, I use the 10 through 52. If you want that big bass tone, definitely get the 52s. They're a great gauge. And they're more flexible because of the German steel and the round core, so they don't feel as heavy as a standard American 52, so you won't notice much difference. I do use custom sets that Don Butler is Toneman. He makes up his own. He'll make a set for you if you request it. You have to buy a dozen. And I got some 11 through 52s, 11, 14, 18 through 30, 42, 52, and I only use those now on this guitar that I tuned down a whole step. It's great for that guitar. Johnny Winter did that a lot to give him a different sound. Hendrix tuned down a half step, Stevie Ray Vaughan tuned down a half step, but Johnny tunes down a whole step, which makes it even cooler sounding. Either way, go to Toneman. He's got the best selection. He is the unofficial U.S. rep and demos these strings at the Winter NAMM conventions and Frankfurt Musik Messe. I can't say. If I didn't believe they were the best, I wouldn't bother. That's Don's quote. But he said also the thing about the German strings, the Germans use the finest materials, core wires, and plain strings are silver-plated German steel, not the usual cheap tin-plated Swedish steel like others use. And I think that's the big difference. And one thing I've even started a journal because I have so many guitars that I have to keep strings on. That I started a journal to document when I changed strings, what strings I changed, and how I can see how long they've lasted and how long it takes me to break a string. since I play so much and bend strings so much, I just go buy the standard, Diodario singles online, all the non plain string gauges that I need, and I just change those and hardly ever change the wound strings. I play them so much, usually I'll finally cut through the winding and I'll end up with a flat string, and then I know it's time to change them. But they'll last a good 2 or 3 months playing them every day for hours. So if you have any questions, just make a comment. But by far, Toneman has the best prices and the best string selection. So I've checked out a lot of the other websites, and it's hard to even find the strings on their websites, but I've been dealing with Don Butler for years. He also is plays in a great John Lennon cover band, so you ought to check that out on his site. One thing I wanted to go over with you real quick is there is a precautionary stringing technique to keep the round wound strings from slipping on the round core, and that's why they went to the hex cores, so that the winding wouldn't slip. But in every set there's this little leaflet, and at the bottom there it says very important, and it tells you that you need to put a 90-degree bend in the string before you cut it. And I will go over an extra step that I take to make sure that the cores don't slip inside the winding. The reason they went to hex cores so that the winding wouldn't slip. When you cut the string on a round core, the winding can slip and it'll knock the intonation. It'll make the string dead. It does. I've had more dead strings than out of intonated, bad intonation on strings on other brands. That's why I switched to begin with, because I was getting so many bad strings. But just as a precaution on round wound strings, I string them a little more carefully. And since you have the safety posts on most fenders, you always have to pre-cut the string. And when you pre-cut the string, you have a tendency for it to slip if you're not careful. So what I do to prevent the slippage, first I always stick it into the post and kink it over just to measure how deep the post is. Hopefully you can see that bend. And then I will, I usually have, depending on the string, maybe 3 or 4 fingers over here. And then where I know that I want the string to go into the post, the length, I'll put a 90-degree bend in it like this, so that I have a 90-degree bend, at least 90. Most of the time it's about 45. And that keeps the winding from slipping right there. But then I take this part that I measured in the post, and I will put it up, kind of loop it around so that I get a measurement to where I know where to cut the string, so it goes all the way in the post. And before I cut the string, I actually put a few more little kinks on the string here to kind of crimp the winding onto the core, and then I'll cut it, and that goes away. Now you've got this pre-cut, crimped, bent end that goes in here just right. And so when you cut it, you don't take any chances of slippage. It fits right in there. Wrap it around, get my winder, wind it on there, and that's it.